On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched the largest amphibious invasion in military history. To retake Western Europe, an armada of 7,000 vessels had to carry 130,000 men across the open waters of the English Channel. But crossing the water was only half the problem. As you can see on this map, the coast of France was guarded by the Atlantic Wall, a continuous 1,600-mile barrier stretching from Norway down to Spain. Looking at the French coast, the Allies had two options. Calais was only 21 miles from Britain, making it the most obvious entry point. Because of that, Germany parked their elite 15th Army right there to defend it. Normandy, on the other hand, required a 100-mile journey through rougher seas. Allied commanders chose the longer route to Normandy, but that decision created a fatal risk. If the Germans realized it, they could shift their hardened divisions down the coast and crush the beachhead before the Allies could even unload their supplies. You can't hide 7,000 ships. To survive the landing, the Allies didn't need to make their fleet invisible. They needed to perfectly hide the location of the attack. The solution was Operation Bodyguard. This was a sprawling, highly coordinated campaign of strategic deception designed to sell the enemy a very specific lie. The primary target was Adolf Hitler himself. The Allies knew he was already completely convinced that Calais was the only logical place for an invasion. He had made up his mind years before the first ship even set sail. Operation Bodyguard was designed to weaponize that exact confirmation bias. They weren't going to try to outsmart Hitler. They were going to give him the evidence he already wanted to believe. The first challenge was the sky. German aerial reconnaissance planes regularly flew over Britain taking photographs, and those photos needed to show a massive invasion force gathered across from Calais. To give those cameras what they expected, the Allies invented FUSAG, the first United States Army group. They stationed this fabricated force of 150,000 men directly across from Calais and placed America's most feared commander, General George S. Patton, in charge. To make this ghost army look real from the air, engineers constructed thousands of inflatable rubber Sherman tanks and plywood cargo trucks. To maintain the illusion, troops on the ground constantly repositioned these decoys. They built balsa wood airplanes and used heavy rollers to leave overlapping tread marks in the mud, mimicking the visual signature of a bustling military camp. This was a modern update to an ancient tactic. In 1204, Genghis Khan forced his soldiers to light 5 fires each, tricking the Naiman tribe into thinking they faced a massive, overwhelming force. But while rubber tanks can fool a camera, they can't fool a professional intelligence analyst. To be believable, the fake army also had to have a pulse. The Allies created a second layer of deception, a massive radio network broadcasting thousands of messages designed exclusively for German listening posts to intercept. Radio operators transmitted endless fake supply requests and troop movement orders, mirroring the activity of a real 150,000-man army. They even included hyper-specific details, like personal letters from non-existent soldiers, to add a layer of authenticity that codebreakers found impossible to ignore. This wall of noise provided the mathematical proof the Germans needed to verify the visual evidence they were seeing from the air. There was one final vulnerability. If a spy on the ground saw a soldier lifting a plywood truck with one hand, the illusion would break. However, MI5 had already captured or turned every single German agent operating inside the UK. This allowed them to deploy a Spanish double agent, codenamed GARBO. As this chart shows, he became Berlin's primary source in London, funneling carefully crafted fake intelligence directly to the German High Command. GARBO's reports were consistent. He constantly assured Berlin that Calais remained the main objective, and that any activity seen at Normandy was just a diversion. The deception was so successful that Hitler personally awarded GARBO the Iron Cross for what he believed was invaluable intelligence. GARBO acted as the final psychological lock, turning Hitler's existing bias into a fatal certainty. At dawn on June 6th, the real invasion force landed at Normandy. They faced brutal fighting, but the elite German 15th Army didn't move. They were sitting idle 200 miles away, waiting for a fleet that wasn't coming to Calais. The question was how long it would take for Hitler to realize his mistake and redirect his panzers to crush the beachhead. On June 9th, GARBO sent a frantic message to Berlin. doubling down on the claim that Normandy was a trap and that the real invasion under Patton was still en route to Calais. Hitler believed it. Looking at this map, you can see the results. He kept his panzer divisions frozen in place at Calais for 7 crucial weeks, while the Allied footprint at Normandy expanded into an unstoppable force. That 7-week delay gave the Allies the window they needed to land over 1 million troops without being pushed back into the sea. It allowed for a logistical feat that rubber tanks could never achieve. The Allies built massive artificial mulberry harbors, letting real supply trucks roll directly onto French soil to support the advance. This momentum carried the Allies from the Normandy breakout all the way to the liberation of Paris in August. The physical liberation of Western Europe was secured by an intellectual heist, built on rubber tanks, radiostatic, and a bodyguard of lies.